Hello, my name is Sydney Burr, and I'm going to be presenting on amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. And first, I just want to give you a little background on where the name comes from. It basically comes straight from the definitions of the words. So, amyotrophic means atrophy of muscle or decreased wasting away of the muscle. Lateral means to the side, which refers to the location of damage in the spinal cord of patients with this disease. And sclerosis means hardened, which refers to the hardening nature of the spinal cord in patients with this disease. Shorthand, it's called ALS, and it's also known as Lou Gehrig's disease in the United States because of a famous Major League Baseball Yankees player who died from this disease in 1941. Here we have some general information about ALS. It's known as a fatal neurodegenerative disease, and what happens is that these motor neurons that are responsible for initiating and controlling the movements in our body are gradually lost. So over time, it causes the muscles to get weaker and weaker. So people aren't able to move their arms and their legs. They eventually can't walk, and they will die. Usually the cause of death is respiratory paralysis, which just means that those muscles that are responsible for respirating and for controlling our breathing, they get so weak that they just can't function anymore. So as you see, most of these cases are sporadic. Only about 10% are found to be familial, but both sporadic and familial cases of ALS can stem from genetic issues. The cause of this disease is still largely unknown. There's no cure. So upon diagnosis, you typically see patients die within 3 to 5 years. And as you see, only about 10% live past that. So once somebody is diagnosed with this disease, there is not much to be done for them. There is only one FDA-approved drug treatment out there, and it's Riluzole. It typically only extends life by about 2 to 3 months for these patients. So, like I said, not much to be done once you receive this diagnosis. As you can see here, there are a few different types of ALS. So you have primary lateral sclerosis, which affects mainly those upper motor neurons. You have progressive lateral sclerosis, which affects mainly those lower motor neurons. Then you have bulbar ALS, which affects those muscles involved in speaking, swallowing, and tongue movement. So here over on the left, you see the upper motor neurons and the lower motor neurons, basically where those are located. So the upper are going to originate in the brain. So you can see those where they start up here in the brain and then they go to the other parts of the body. So here on the right side, you've got those lower motor neurons which originate in the spinal cord. And you can see where those go into those muscles right there. So those different motor neurons cause different things when they're affected. So upper is going to be more stiffness or spasticity, and then those lower are going to cause mainly the weakness, loss of muscle, and muscle twitching. So there are some cases that are specific to one type of motor neuron deficiency. However, most patients with ALS are going to have all of these, a combination of the three. As I mentioned earlier, there is no known cure for ALS. However, there's been extensive research done on the differing gut microbiomes of those with ALS and those without ALS. So there's been data to support direct and indirect effects, which will be explained further in the next slide. And these different communication routes are known as the gut-brain axis, so that's going to be used to describe these relationships. And like I said, these studies are ongoing right now, so there's no conclusive results, but this is huge and very exciting for this disease because like I said, there's no cure. So hopefully these differences in these gut microbiomes will open up doors for more research and hopefully an eventual cure. It's important to understand what dysbiosis is before we move on. So there's a definition, but I'm going to simplify it by saying that dysbiosis is a change or a difference in what the normal microbiome would be of an area. So now let's look over here on the left side at A, where you see the central nervous system, the brain up there, is connected by the vagus nerve to the enteric nervous system down here. So if there are changes in the microbiota down here in the intestine, they have a direct pathway where they can affect the central nervous system. So the brain and the spinal cord, which are affected in ALS. Now let's look over here on the right side where you see B, and there it's split in two. You see a healthy version and a version with dysbiosis of this intestinal lumen. So over here on the right, you see the word tight junction, and basically that is just an area where two cells are so close together that they form a basically impermeable membrane. So these certain liquids or, microbes in this case couldn't get through over here on the left side where there are functioning tight junctions, but with such dysbiosis, these tight junctions aren't functioning properly and those microbes are able to get through the epithelium. And you see there they can enter into the bloodstream or the ENS, the enteric nervous system, and go all throughout the body potentially. Here's some information about some trial therapeutics that are underway. What they do is they inject these G93A mice with the human-causing SOD1 genetic mutation that is responsible for the neuron and muscle impairment in those patients with ALS. So they experience dysbiosis, disrupted tight junction structure, increased permeability, all those things that we looked at that diagram previously. And studies have shown that there's a reduced butyrate producing bacteria level. So once they enhance these levels of butyrate, there was a delay in the onset of ALS symptoms as well as a prolonged lifespan, which again, that is huge in this disease where there is just so many unknowns. Here's some graphical evidence of those treatments. So you can see those that receive the butyrate are in green. There in graph A, you see the increased body weight, which is awesome because those with ALS, their muscles weaken and they deteriorate and they really just lose a lot of weight. There in graph B, you see how much the percent survival has increased. And again, this is not a cure, but this butyrate treatment is providing evidence that these microbiome effects may be potential for therapeutic treatments and to just improve the quality of life for those diagnosed with ALS. So this is just a summary of the data and research that proved butyrate as potential therapeutic treatment for ALS patients. And again, this is groundbreaking research for this terrible disease with no known cure. So this is some exciting stuff. Thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed.